need a coach and some players.
Yeah.
It's wonderful. At Phillips Academy Andover, I was limited to 90 minutes a day for practice. So 3:30 until 5 o'clock. And they weren't messing around. Like if you are out there till 5:01 or 5:02, you're getting called into the athletic director's office.
Yeah.
So what I was able to do is sort of create drill progressions that we could do anywhere, like during a free period or, in a parking lot, while waiting for a game to start. I coached New England Roughnecks travel ball 15U for a bunch of years. And that was a lab for me. A lot of the stuff that I teach now was perfected in the summers, trying any and every wacky way to do everything.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Clearing the Bases, the podcast where we step up to the plate and dive deep into the world of youth baseball. I'm your host, Jimmy Filangieri. On this show, we discuss all things related to the preparation and development of youth baseball players, coaches, and yes, even parents. So sit back, settle in, and get ready to hear from some of the greatest baseball minds out there.
And on that campus, they have a little softball diamond that the prison guards play on. And they would let all of us little street rats from the neighborhood play baseball, sandlot style pickup on that softball field when we were little kids. And it was me and my friends against you and your friends, kids biking down the hill from their neighborhood to take on our neighborhood, jeans and t-shirts, no adults, no umpires, no coaches, just us kids. And man, if I wanted to steal second base, I stole second base. If I wanted to steal third base, I stole third base. If I wanted to make a hard turn at first and get in a rundown just because it was fun, I would do that. I mean, there were no rules. I remember one time, Jimmy, I was standing on second base and the shortstop threw a lit firecracker at me.
To be able to reach the highest levels of this game, you got to work hard. You got to get in the cages. You got to do your strength and conditioning. You got to throw your bullpens. There's all of this physical stuff that you need to do, and you need to work hard at it. But don't forget that you also have to get better at the mental side of the game. And one of the ways you can do that is increase baseball IQ by downloading and using the 6-Tool app.
For baseball coaches like you, every game brings measurable progress. However, game time isn't the time for trial and error learning. Instead, have a proactive approach. Use 6-Tool, the best baseball player development tool on the market. We provide a platform to level up your coaching strategy by helping you to quickly identify and address your players' knowledge of the game. By using our easy-to-implement interactive player quizzes, you can assess position-specific issues, overall baseball IQ, and much more. Win more games and develop better overall baseball players with effective off-the-field training. Visit us at 6-tool.com. 6-Tool. Get ahead in the game.
One of the most respected baseball minds in the country, with experience spanning amateur, collegiate, and professional baseball, is Coach Kevin Graber. He currently serves as the manager of the Lowell Spinners of the Futures Collegiate Baseball League, helping lead the return of one of New England's most recognizable baseball franchises. Before joining the Spinners, Graber spent time in the Chicago Cubs organization, where he served as a coordinator, and in 2023, he managed the Double-A Tennessee Smokies to the franchise's first outright Southern League championship in 45 years. Prior to his professional success, Graber built Phillips Academy Andover into one of the premier high school baseball programs in the nation. During his tenure, his teams captured multiple Central New England Prep championships, consistently finished among New England's top-ranked programs, and developed countless players who advanced to college and professional baseball. His work earned him multiple regional Coach of the Year honors from both the American Baseball Coaches Association and the National High School Baseball Coaches Association. Coach Graber is a lifelong student of the game. His journey has included stops in collegiate baseball, independent, professional baseball, the Cape Cod Baseball League, and the New York Collegiate Baseball League. Known for his passion for player development, base running instruction, and building winning cultures, he has become one of the most influential educators in baseball and is a highly sought after speaker at coaching clinics across the country. Today, Kevin continues to impact the game by mentoring players, coaches, and organizations while leading the next generation of talent with the Lowell Spinners. Okay, so welcome to the show, Kevin. It's great to have you on. I'm looking forward to a good conversation. We got a lot of stuff to cover, and let's start with your history and your background. I mean, we're almost neighbors. You being from Albany, me being from Hopewell Junction, we're almost neighbors.
Yeah, for sure. Grew up on New Scotland Avenue in Albany, New York. Went to high school at Christian Brothers Academy, CBA. Finished out my college playing career at the College of St. Rose. Played in the Albany Twilight League growing up. North Albany Legion Post 1610. So I am the Tri-Cities 518, Albany, Schenectady, Troy, through and through.
So let's go a little bit through your career. Let's start with Phillips Andover. How'd you wind up there from Albany?
Oh man, this is a really long story, but this is sort of a long form conversation, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So backtracking just a little bit. I finished out my college career, transferred from Winthrop University to the College of St. Rose in my hometown of Albany to play for the legendary Bob Belizzi, who had been my coach with the Schenectady Mohawks. My senior year at St. Rose in May of 1992, during the playoffs, I collapsed on the field at Bleecker Stadium in downtown Albany. Yep, I had lymph node cancer, lymphoma. It had gone undiagnosed. I had been feeling awful, but I just didn't know what was wrong with me. So they took me to St. Peter's Hospital. Instead of a traditional path into professional baseball via the draft, what my path was surgeries, chemotherapy, radiation, and ICU stays. During that time, I just, all I could really think about was baseball, even though it had, the rug had been sort of pulled out from underneath me. A guy named Joe Volano out of Scotia, New York, read about me in the Albany Times-Union, and he called me up and he asked me if I would be interested in coaching his son's American Legion team. And I was like, well, how much does it pay? And he said, nothing. I said, okay, I'll do it. Jimmy, I think I was 20, just turned 22. My players were 19. And yeah. I didn't know it at the time, but I had no idea what I was doing. So from there, I ended up networking my way into an assistant coach's job at a California JUCO called Lassen College with legendary head coach Steve Abney. I drove my Plymouth Sundance 3,000 miles from Albany to Susanville, California in the Sierra Nevada mountains. And my princely sum for a salary was $1,500 for the entire year. While I was there, I started my own college summer league team in what used to be the Mountains Collegiate Baseball League. We had a team in Schenectady called the Electric City Giants. And while I was coaching Cal JUCO, I collected Cal JUCO players, the ones that I liked, and said, hey, come back with me to New York, upstate New York, and we'll play college summer ball. Stashed half of them in my mom's basement, found host families for the rest. And we took the Mountains Collegiate Baseball League by storm, largely with base running and this California JUCO style that I had learned while I was out there. A lot of short game stuff, a lot of push bunt, drag bunt, safety squeezes, fake breaks, false breaks, delay steals, you name it. And that was a style of baseball I'd never been exposed to before. So that was a lot of fun. A funny thing happened along the way. I started to become healthy. I was working out, lifting weights. I was putting myself in hitting groups. I was turning double plays with the middle infielders. If we had a non-league game, I was putting myself in the lineup. And someone saw me and said, hey, you should play again. And I hadn't really thought of that, but I was like, okay, someone who knows the game is watching what I'm doing and saying you should get back on the field. So I started to look for ways I could get back on the field, maybe transition back into professional baseball as a player. I got an opportunity to play overseas in Australia. Sent them a fax with my resume on it, some newspaper clippings. And basically the deal was, you can come over if you like. We don't know much about you. We could watch you play and say, hey, no thanks. But yeah, come on over if you want. So my mom paid for my plane ticket, flew all the way over to Australia. They picked me up at the airport, drove me to the field, the stadium. I took batting practice, took infield, outfield, and I was in the lineup that night at shortstop. Yeah. So it was an emotional moment for me because I'm back on the field as a player, putting that uniform on in front of people. And I just started to tear up at shortstop. I'm like, I got to wipe the tears out of my eyes. They might hit the ball to me. So played pretty well over there. Then I was able to come back to the U.S. and I started playing independent ball. So the other independent ball teams I played for, the most noteworthy was the Southern Minnesota Stars in the then Prairie League in Austin, Minnesota, 90 miles south of the Twin Cities, the world headquarters of Hormel. It's known as Spam Town, USA. That's where they make all the Hormel pork products and everything they make. While I was there, I had a really good year, was playing second year, and then a little something reoccurred on my chest x-ray. Not to the extent of my original diagnosis, but enough that I had to hang it up again, unfortunately. When that happened, Greg Olson, former catcher for the Atlanta Braves, and the ownership, which was Tom Glavine, Steve Avery, and John Smoltz, people know that pitching rotation from Braves lore, they asked me if I'd consider managing. And again, I was like, well, what does it pay? And they were like, $1,200 a month. I was like, I'll do it. So at this point, Jimmy, I'm the youngest manager in all of professional baseball. And I'm like, I'm going to do this forever. Following season, I got a promotion. I was hired by the Adirondack Lumberjacks in the Northeast League to skipper their ship. That's in Glens Falls, New York, so a little bit closer to home.
Yep.
I was married to my still wife, Tina. We had our oldest daughter, Katie, and it just started to dawn on me, like what I'm doing, all these games in a tin can, riding a bus 16 hours away and coming home. And just, it was not conducive to being a great parent. I was bound for the award for worst parent ever or a fast track to divorce. So I bailed and I figured, working on college campuses would be more conducive to being a great family man. And I was right. First job that I took was at the University of West Alabama down in Livingston, Alabama, pretty close to Meridian, Mississippi. Stayed there for 2 years. And then I had two job offers, one at Amherst College in Massachusetts, and the other one was Bowling Green State University in Ohio, mid-major Division I. But Amherst College had this legendary coach named Bill Thurston, who was at the time the world's preeminent authority on pitching and pitching mechanics and biomechanics of the pitching motion. And I was a shortstop. I was like, I want to follow that guy around and learn from him. So we stayed at Amherst College for 8 years. While I was there, I started to really, being around awesome students at a really selective school, I started to really buy into the life of the mind and academia and all this fun stuff because I was a really apathetic student in college and high school. All I wanted to do was play baseball. So I had the brilliant idea of going back to school, and I did so at the University of Massachusetts. I was still coaching baseball at Amherst College at the time, but yeah, my wife and I and our now 3 kids, Katie, Kelly, and Kyle, we moved into a 22-story dorm with 500 students on UMass Amherst campus, and I was the residence director in exchange for tuition, housing, meals, and a stipend of $13,000 a year for our family of 5. But I really wanted to get I did a full undergraduate degree in English, graduate degree in English, and a full graduate degree in education and get my teaching certification.
Wow.
And that was the goal. I just felt like going back to school, having a do-over and grabbing these degrees was going to open up some really cool doors for me. And the door it opened up was Phillips Academy Andover, the number 1 ranked prep school, boarding school in the country. Andover and this other inferior school called Exeter are like the Harvard and Yale of this tier of schools. Exeter and Andover rivals. That's why I give them a little jab there.
Yep.
And I came on board as senior associate director of admission, varsity baseball coach, dormitory counselor, living in all sizes of dorms, which I'd done at UMass, academic advisor. I ended up being a classroom teacher, all the things. Was there for 13 years. When we got the program up to its apex, we were ranked number 1 in New England, wire to wire, for 5 straight years. And with 6 kids drafted, and it was a lot of fun. My entry into professional baseball is a whole nother story in and of itself. But long story short, the rules in Major League Baseball changed. Bigger bases, which meant smaller baselines. Pickoff rule, third pickoff. If you don't record an out, it's the equivalent of a balk. You're awarded the next base. And also the pitch clock, which you can work to your advantage as a base stealer as it gets down 3-2-1. And around that time, I did a presentation on something that I had been presenting a lot at different coaches conventions. But I presented at the American Baseball Coaches Association National Convention in Chicago, for which 8,000 coaches register. And I was on the main stage, and and I presented something I called controlled chaos. It was about how to put a base stealing, base running system in place in your program and like let it rip and have your guys have a lot of fun with it.
Yeah.
After that presentation, man, my phone started ringing off the hook with big league organizations. The Chicago Cubs were the one organization that came calling that also valued the other things I did in addition to baseball. They liked that I'd been a classroom teacher, academic advisor, dorm house parent, and they brought me on board as a complex coordinator. So we up and moved to Arizona and to be attached to the spring training facility year-round in Mesa, Arizona, with the Chicago Cubs. My original job was complex coordinator, and I was going to manage the complex league team, the rookie league team that plays out of that spring training facility in Arizona. A few weeks before spring training, my first spring training, the field coordinator who I was reporting to was elevated to big league hitting coach, a guy named Dustin Kelly, who's still the hitting coach in Chicago. And they plugged me into field coordinator. And now my job is to run spring training, every facet of it, the schedule, what we teach for first and thirds, cuts and relays, who's doing what, when, working with the coordinators, making sure everything's happening as it should, minor league spring training games, setting the lineups, sending minor league players over to big league spring training games. Huge job. And it brought with it a roving responsibility. And the Cubs also piled on my plate base running, base stealing coordinator for the organization as well. And so that first year, while I was roving, I was in Knoxville, Tennessee, in the Southern League AA. I was there for 6 games, and there was an emergency vacancy in the manager's position. So I get a call from one of the general managers of the Cubs, and it's like, hey, guess what? You're going to skipper the ship tomorrow, Sunday, against Rocket City. I'm like, okay, all right. So postpone my flight. Skippered the ship. We won. Got another call. Hey, postpone that flight. You're going to stay with the team. We take the team to Birmingham this week. Go to Birmingham. We win 5 out of 6. Get another call. Hey, that flight you just rescheduled again? Well, cancel that. We're going to have you stay with the team through the All-Star break. And I ended up staying with the team through the entire year. And we broke a 45-year drought in AA. We won the Southern League for the first time since the 70s. And the manager the last time they won a championship was Tony La Russa, who everybody knows. So that was quite an experience for me. But I ended up moving back to field coordinator the following year, and that's how I finished out my career with the Cubs. Field coordinator is a huge position. There's only one in each organization, and that job is a big one. And then I sort of missed all the things you get to do in a school environment that have nothing to do with baseball. I missed being in the classroom. I missed being an academic advisor. I missed, doing all the things. And we decided in that third year to segue back to the prep school ranks and back to the Northeast. And that brings us to now. I manage the Lowell Spinners in the Futures League. We have 160 stolen bases in 46 games, which is great. 86% success rate. That's all I really care about. And I'm also the senior associate director of admissions at a new school called Masters Academy in Stowe, Massachusetts. I mean brand new, Jimmy. Like, we are opening for fall term September 15th for the first time. Ribbon cutting with the governor. It is a sports academy, sort of similar to IMG, but it's here in New England, which is the hub of academia. Mm-hmm. So we're having New England level academics in addition to that. So we're really the only show in the region with that sort of thing. So it's really, really exciting. I get to be part of a group that's building the airplane as we're flying it.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, I mean, to get in on the ground floor, with something like that is awesome because you get to do it your way, right?
Totally. And it's, questions like, are we going to have a dress code?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I get to be a part of the decision-making group that decides the direction of this new school in a way that's really, really cool. It's been really rewarding.
Right. So all of that is amazing. I mean, I'll tell you that because that
was the Spark Notes version, Jimmy.
I'll tell you, it's quite a story. And, when we were in Chicago, I got to be honest with you. I didn't get to see your presentation, but because the ABCA puts those presentations online, I was able to go back and see it, and I thought it was fantastic because at the youth level, and I'll even say at the high school level, that's one of the most under-taught things is base running.
Mm-hmm.
So elaborate on that a little bit.
Yeah, I agree with you, and my motivation there goes way, way back. Where I grew up in Albany, New York on New Scotland Avenue, I grew up across the street from the New York State Training Academy, where they train all the prison guards for the state of New York. And on that campus, they have a little softball diamond that the prison guards play on. And they would let all of us little street rats from the neighborhood play baseball, sandlot style pickup on that softball field when we were little kids. And it was me and my friends against you and your friends, kids biking down the hill from their neighborhood to take on our neighborhood, jeans and t-shirts, no adults, no umpires, no coaches, just us kids. And man, if I wanted to steal second base, I stole second base. If I wanted to steal third base, I stole third base. If I wanted to make a hard turn at first and get in a rundown just because it was fun, like I would do that. I mean, there were no rules. I remember one time, Jimmy, I was standing on second base and the shortstop threw a lit firecracker at me. But I think that as I began coaching, life evolved. Kids don't go out and just play unstructured like that anymore. The positive is they have access to unbelievable training, these indoor facilities and hitting coaches and all the technology and all the things that they get to do, but they seldom go out there and just let it rip with no rules. And so coaching kids, what I found is that especially on the bases, they were kind of robotic. They really were only doing what I told them to do. And if it involved like any sort of, veering from that structure, it was really, really hard for them. So I was like, what can we do that gives kids autonomy to make plays, go out and do fun stuff, and they don't have to wait for a sign from me? Now, 2014 is when this really came to a head because I was coaching at Phillips Academy Andover. We had one of our first really good teams, but Jimmy, we were 1-5 to start the year.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And it was like we were falling behind. And then those last few innings, it was like watching the sand run out of the hourglass. And I'm like, we're losing these games anyway. Why don't we just do weird, wacky stuff? Yeah. Like, let's go crazy fist. And one night after a particularly disheartening loss, I went home and I went on the back edge of the internet. I surfed the entire internet looking for something. And intuitively, Jimmy, I felt like it was between second and third base. I don't know what it was, but like I'd never coached teams that stole third. I'd never been on a team that stole third, maybe once in a while. But I discovered this guy, Mike Roberts, who most baseball people know. He was formerly the head coach at University of North Carolina. At the time, he was the head coach, the Cotuit Kettleers in the Cape Cod League. And his son, Brian Roberts, was using the family techniques to lead Major League Baseball in stolen bases. And so I ordered Mike's book, his original book. It's called something like You Can't Steal Second with Your Foot on First. I'm paraphrasing, but it's something like that.
Right.
And I ordered it and I devoured it in one night. And what I took from that is between second and third, and I installed it the next day and we started doing it in a game the following day. And I'll tell you, I remember like it was yesterday, we were playing at Groton School. We had drilled it the day before, momentum steals of third base between second and third, but I just couldn't get the kids to go. Yeah. They were shuffling, but they were like scared they were going to get thrown out or picked off. And I'm begging them like, guys, go. We got to go. You're not going to get in trouble if you get thrown out, I promise. Yeah. And Peyton Jancy, one of my favorite players I've ever coached, went for it. And he got thrown out by 2.5 steps. And the guys on the bench, no dugout at this field, they're looking at me holding their breath like, they want to see what my response was. And my response was, let's go. That's awesome, Peyton. Yeah, someone had to be the first. You just open the floodgates, man. This is going to be crazy from here on out. Yeah. And they saw that he didn't get in trouble, and that gave him the green light to let it rip. Yeah. And so over the years, I started to perfect my own version of drill progressions and drill work for teaching this. At Phillips Academy Andover, we had really smart kids who were committed to Princeton and Yale and Harvard and all these wonderful schools. And they started to hit me with ideas during drill progressions as well. And I just got really, really good at teaching this. And then we layered other things onto our offense as well that kids could do without having to wait for a sign. And I came up with 4 check boxes. Technique first. So in any base stealing technique, you got to teach the technique first, isolate it, drill it from primary leads to dive backs to the steal break itself, and make sure you got it second nature without any external stimulus, with no defense trying to defend it against you. And then you start to teach the checkpoints, timing, distance, and anticipation. So at all of my coaches conventions at which I present, I teach technique first, and then we go through the 3 check boxes: timing, distance, and anticipation. And I have drill progressions for each. I didn't have these drill progressions in 2014, but over the course of all these years, obsessing about base running, obsessing about base stealing, it's been a snowball rolling downhill. Yeah. And so when I got the opportunity to present at ABCA Chicago in front of 8,000 coaches, man, Jimmy, I prepared for that presentation like Rocky Balboa getting ready to fight Apollo Creed, man. When I gave that presentation, it wasn't the first time I gave that presentation because I must have rehearsed it 75 times at least. I mean, the full thing.
Yeah.
And I had, video clips of, guys doing the techniques and video clips of drill progressions. I had everything I wanted to say memorized by heart. And man, that was really freeing being on that stage, being that prepared. So that's another long story, but that's how, I ended up with this philosophy and why I'm so invested in base stealing and how it came to be that I sort of became a brand name with this stuff.
Right. Yeah. I mean, let's face it, getting up on that stage is not an easy thing to do. People think that, guys get up there and I know me, I would probably have a heart attack getting up on that stage. As a matter of fact, it was funny because I mentioned it to Ryan at one time that, if that ever came and he had asked me to speak, I told him, I said, Ryan, I won't do it. I said, I won't be able to do it. And he looked at me and he laughed and he said, wait, Jimmy, because you do a podcast. He said, you can't get up there and talk to people. And I said, no, it's different. It's a lot different.
Well, it's funny, Jimmy. I wrote an editorial not long after for the ABCA magazine that they put out.
Yeah.
Inside Pitch, it's called.
Yep.
And the title of the editorial that I wrote was "Be Careful What You Wish For."
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And it was about my experience presenting on that main stage.
Yeah. I think I have probably 5 articles in Inside Pitch that I've, that they've published that I've written. So I'm very familiar with it. I've been a member of the ABCA for, I don't know, I think 10 years now. And I sit on their youth committee. So very familiar to me. And it's such a great organization with so many people. And, one of the things that I've always said, again, guys like yourself, guys that I've met, throughout the years, everybody that's a good baseball person is a good person in general. Okay, is just a good person. You don't find, I can say that out of all the people I know in the ABCA, I've never met somebody I said, geez, that guy's a jerk. Never.
Yeah, there's a mantra here sometimes that baseball doesn't, build character, it reveals it. And, the game is hard. And I think that's why we're in it, because it is hard. Nothing worthwhile was ever easy. And we handle failure and we're in confined spaces with one another. And we have to learn to get along. And I think that goes a long way into shaping who baseball people are just as human beings.
Yeah. And I think that a lot of it has to do with the fact that, anybody that's involved with the ABCA is inherently a lifelong learner. We're there to learn.
Absolutely.
And I talk about it on the show all the time. Ego. There's some ego. Of course there is. We all have ego. But it's not prevalent. Nobody's out there, putting their chest out saying, look at me,
Yeah.
But it's great.
Yeah, for sure. I used to collect baseball books. Like I would go to Barnes and Noble and just like whatever baseball instructional books they had, I would buy them.
Yeah.
But nowadays, ABCA membership brings you unlimited access to every presentation they have dating back decades. All you can live stream right on your laptop. And I'm addicted to it just like you are, it sounds like.
Yeah. I mean, Ron Polk, the baseball playbook. If you're a coach and you don't have that book, then something's wrong. Okay.
Someone gave me that book as a gift when I first started coaching back in like 1994. And it wasn't new then. Like it had some mileage on it. And I still have it. The binding is coming apart. There are pages that are stuffed in there. And I had the opportunity to coach against Ron Polk in the Cape Cod League. And so I brought him before the game over to the other dugout. I brought him my mess of a Ron Polk's playbook. And I was like, hey, coach, you got to sign this for me. And I got to get my photo taken with you.
Yeah.
He thought it was the best thing ever.
Oh, yeah. I mean, what a thrill for both of you,
Yep.
So, all right. So we went into a little bit about, well, not a little bit, but a good part about the base running, which, again, I believe is very, very important. We as high school and, now a college coach, one of the things that I always struggled with was trying to find the time to actually work on the base running. Okay. So, I do stuff like, taking leads on first base, how your feet should be, and all of that type of thing to be able to get that jump. But explain to us a little bit like how you work your base running into your practices.
Yeah, the great thing about base running is you don't need a field and you don't need equipment. You just need a coach and some players.
Yeah.
It's wonderful. At Phillips Academy Andover, I was limited to 90 minutes a day for practice. So 3:30 until 5 o'clock, and they weren't messing around. Like if you are out there till 5:01 or 5:02, you're getting called into the athletic director's office.
Yeah.
So what I was able to do is sort of create drill progressions that we could do anywhere, like during a free period or, in a parking lot, while waiting for a game to start. I coached New England Roughnecks travel ball 15U for a bunch of years. And that was a lab for me. A lot of the stuff that I teach now was perfected in the summers, trying any and every wacky way to do everything.
Yeah.
And didn't really care if we got thrown out or whatever. Kept what I liked, discarded what I didn't. But, we would travel to, the tournaments in Georgia that everybody goes to. And, we'd be at the Super 8 motel in the parking lot, and we'd be working on momentum steel breaks in our drill progressions. So that's the great thing about it is like you don't necessarily need to be part of a practice or have a field. You could do it anytime, anywhere. But as part of a structured practice plan, I think that when we do work on base running or specifically base stealing, it tends to come at the end of practice, like the last 10 minutes or so. So what I did is I started making it part of our dynamic stretch. It was the last part of dynamic stretch. And I thought that putting it first on the practice plan kind of emphasized to our kids, like, okay, this is really, really important. That's why it's first.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. But yeah, I love that because my last high school that I was coaching at, we didn't have a baseball field.
Yeah.
The only thing we had was a football field that we practiced on. And we did a lot of base running stuff on that football field because, like you said, you don't need a baseball field to work on base running.
Yeah, for sure.
But one of the things, and again, I'm asking your opinion on this because I've heard people say, when I teach leads off second base, I have less than 2 outs and a 2-out lead. There's 2 different leads.
Right.
I've heard other guys say that, no, you shouldn't do that. Mm-hmm. Talk to me.
Yeah, so for me, what we perfect in the teams that I coach is something I call momentum steals between second and third. And momentum steals, long story short, it's the art of gaining ground laterally, gaining momentum laterally before the pitcher lifts his leg. And then when that leg lift converts to a delivery, a pitch delivered home, you convert that lateral shuffle into a turn my shoulders and go steal break. Our guys have the green light to steal third base. No sign from me, but I teach them endlessly in drill what has to fall in place for them to go. And it's, again, those 3 check boxes: timing, which means off before a leg lift; distance, which means we start at 15 or thereabouts. And if we can get out to 28 feet, 29, 30, before the ball comes out of the pitcher's hand, they cannot throw us out. So that's distance. And anticipation means I have a plan for what's going to happen on this pitch. Kind of like you would have a plan at home plate. I go up to the plate, it's a 3-1 count. I'm zoning fastball, and I'm like, man, if I get the fastball I'm looking for, I'm going to hammer this thing. But if it's a breaking ball, I spit on it, and I live to fight another pitch. Right. It's the same thing with our method of base stealing. If timing, distance, and anticipation don't fall into place, we don't go. Right. And that's what makes it low risk, high reward. The anticipation part is similar to that approach at the plate. Sometimes a pitcher will 2 look. Sometimes he'll 1 look, but he never more than 2 looks. So I might be out in my primary lead saying, all right, if he gives me a second look, as soon as those eyes turn back toward home, I'm going to hit a shuffle toward third. And if that's not what falls into place, we don't shuffle. It's so you have an approach, you have a plan, and you stick to it. And if what you anticipated happens real time, you continue on through that steal break. If not, you live to fight another pitch. Yeah. So that's a really circuitous answer to your question about why we take our lead between second and third, because they have the green light to steal. Right. And that's the shortest distance between those 2 points. Right. So we have them in that baseline between the back corner of second base and the back corner of third. And Jimmy, one of the reasons I don't and I can't give a steal sign for that is because I don't have a crystal ball I can look into that tells me if this kid is going to get timing, distance, and anticipation on this particular pitch. So just like we did in the Sandlot baseball diamond under Scotland Road in Albany, New York, we leave this in the hands of the players. Hey, go out and make a play, backyard baseball style.
Yeah. One of the things that I've always had at home is something very similar to what you're talking about is if I give you the steal sign and the conditions aren't right, well, you don't have to steal.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. But just understand that you have the steal sign that I'm looking for you to steal the base. So when it's good for you, go. Make a smart decision and go.
Yeah, if you get a bad jump or they hit you with a slide step or something like that. Jimmy, the one time we do take a deep 2-out style lead at second base is when we're the trail runner and there's a runner on third. Or say we're up by 15 runs and we don't want to be in a posture to run.
Right. Right.
But, one thing is even though I might red light a guy for a few pitches, I still have them in that baseline because we're so known for stealing third that they have a middle infielder like way out of the hole parked near that base, and I want to keep him there.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Good point. Yeah. Yeah. So let's move on a little bit because you've been a college coach.
Sure.
College recruiting. What are college coaches really evaluating when they watch a player?
Oh man, it might sound cliche, but as a college recruiter, I used to like to get to the game well before the game. Watch stretch, watch catch play, watch how that kid like even walks onto the diamond. Does he look like a mess? Is his mom carrying his bag for him?
Yeah.
How is he with his coach? How is he with his teammates? And of course I want to see what it looks like too, because I think the guys you want to recruit move a certain way. They have actions for the game. One of my favorite mantras is like, okay, that's what it looks like, right? And you kind of know it when you see it. Yeah. So that's really, really important as well. And then, aside from, their at-bats and, how they make plays at shortstop during the game, I like to see, did he run that ball out? Did he make a hard turn? Did he back up that throw? Did he support his teammates? Was he complaining about the umpire? It's like, do I want to be on the field with this kid? And will he come and like perpetuate that awesome circle of energy and that culture that we've built? Or is this a kid we'd have to sort of break down and rebuild and like insert him into the culture? So it's a lot about, how good is the kid at baseball, but it's also about like what kind of kid is he and what will he add to our circle of energy and the culture we built with our program.
Yeah. Common theme. I mean, we're all looking for that. I know, the intangibles, that's what we want to see, because again, if you're going to see that kid, you're not going there because somebody told you that he can't play the game. You're going there, you already know he can play. Let's see how he acts.
Yeah, Jimmy, I kind of equate it to, my other job besides baseball is I am a dean in offices of admission at really, really selective prep schools. And my criteria in making admissions decisions on kids who apply, baseball or not, for me was always, is this the kind of kid I would want in my classroom? Is this the kid I would want in my advising group? Is this the kind of kid I would want in my dorm? Is this the kid I would want on my team coaching? And that I carry that through to how I evaluate baseball kids and baseball families as well.
So the other thing too that I'm interested to hear your opinion on is, parents, okay? Because you've been in the high school realm for a while. So you see a lot of how parents are, and where are they focusing that maybe they shouldn't be focusing?
Oh man, there's so much fear of missing out nowadays. And, our neighbor's kid put out a social media post, proud and blessed to have received an offer from college, blah, blah, blah. And then the parents are like, oh, what? Oh gosh, we got to catch up. There's just so much of that. Right. And, I got to get my kid to this showcase and I got to do this and I have to do that. When in reality, none of those doors are going to open and none of those dreams will come true unless player development happens. So, I think the focus when it's on like, what are the little things that my son needs to do to make those doors open up rather than how do we open up those doors and sort of circumvent that process? And it happens at a different rate for all different kids, as you know, as well as I do.
Yeah. Yeah. That's interesting that you put it that way, because the way I explain it to people is you want to play at the highest level that you can achieve with the ability that you have. Okay. Yeah. So let's not chase Vanderbilt, LSU, Texas. Okay. If that's not where, and I always say that I think that if parents were smart, what they would do is they would get somebody that's an independent, right. Somebody who will give you an independent assessment of where your kid fits, so that takes a lot of the nonsense out of it. Now I know I'm looking at D3 schools at this level.
Yeah. Independent and honest. One podcast that I like listening to is Walter Beatty, because he gives a lot of good advice for parents who are, navigating this path. And that's a lot of what he says. And I think it hits home for me.
Yeah, Walter's a good friend, and I listen to his podcast whenever I can. I mean, because, to your point, Walter gives great advice, and yeah, he's just on top of his game.
Yeah, for sure.
So, well, we kind of touched on that. I don't want to go there, but let's talk about leadership a little bit. So,
Yeah.
what leadership lesson has taken you the longest to learn?
When you do not communicate, people fill that space up with whatever they want to fill it with. And 99% of the time it's negative.
Yeah.
So you have to communicate, even when it's uncomfortable. We all have uncomfortable conversations that we want to avoid. Like it's hard to tell, a player he's not going to be in the lineup, or he's not going to, make the team. But don't let him see it like when you post the lineup card or when you post the list of your final roster. Take the time to have that conversation and have a little say over what the narrative is, rather than just putting a list up and letting everybody make their own assumptions and say their own stuff.
Yeah.
And I think that's good for your longevity and mental health as a coach, but it's also good for the kids and the families to have an open and honest dialogue. So uncomfortable conversations, I don't love. I don't feel like I'm always good at them, but I know that they're necessary. So I've gotten to the point where I have them and do the best that I can with them.
Right. So probably the same as what I believe is that you have to be brutally honest. You have to put it in as clean a way as you can, but you have to be brutally honest with people and explain to them, like you said, the lineup card. Okay. So if I had a guy who was in the lineup and then tomorrow he's not, well, we're going to have a little conversation before you see that. I'm not going to just spring that on you.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I try to balance honesty with, being conscious of people's feelings, because we coach kids by and large, and that's important as well. The other thing I would add, Jimmy, to that is just establishing clearly communicated core values.
There you go.
A pet peeve of mine, and I used to do this, was like, come on, play hard. And then I'm like, wait a second, what does it mean to actually play hard in our program?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So you reverse engineer from that. Okay. So what are the 9 tenets in our program that it means to play hard? Right. Yeah. And that could be, we're sprinting everything out, whether they make the play 10 feet in front of us or it's a bang, bang, we're sprinting through that bag, widening out, chopping our feet and looking for an overthrow.
Yep.
And that way you have these non-negotiables that you can refer back to when you have to steer the ship back in the right direction. And there's no surprises there. And that way also your older players, the returning players, they know it, and it becomes, in their hands, and they're the ones that steer the core values toward the new kids coming into the program. It becomes a self-perpetuating, successful mission.
Yeah. I mean, that's one of the things that makes me feel good as a coach. You go to practice and somebody does something that's not part of your core values, and one of your upperclassmen goes over and gives them a little bit of elbow and says, hey, we don't do that here.
That's the most powerful thing that I can hear a kid say is, hey, that's not how we do things here.
Yeah. Yeah.
So for me, it's 2 things. What does it mean to play hard, and what does it mean to be a good teammate? Yeah. And then we define what both of those mean, and those are the standards we adhere to.
Yeah. Yeah. So this is something that I'm curious about.
Yeah.
Now, you've been around a long time. You've been coaching for a long time. How do you handle
every level there is, pretty much?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you even coached Little League. Is that right?
Well, from won a Mickey Mantle state championship with Amherst Mickey Mantle back in the 2000s to Major League Baseball with the Chicago Cubs.
Yeah, yeah.
And high school, college, Cape Cod League, summer leagues, you name it.
Yeah.
Area code games.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's amazing, and I kind of look at it like you climb that ladder. You got good at one thing, which brought you to next, and you got good at that, and it brought you to next.
Yeah.
And that's what we talked about earlier about being a lifelong learner. That's the only way that happens.
Yeah. And, one of the things for me is, and I'm blessed to have a wife who has been on this adventure with me, but I have always gone where the opportunity is. I mean, my first real coaching job, I drove 3,000 miles from Albany, New York to Susanville, California, sight unseen in the Sierra Nevada mountains, 40 minutes from Reno, for $1,500 for the entire year. I mean, who does that, honestly?
Yeah.
Not a lot of people.
Yeah.
And, growing up in Albany, I have great friends. I'm a neighborhood guy. I'm super social, man. Everybody knows me. I know everybody.
Yeah.
But occasionally I'll go home and people who've been following my career will be like, everybody calls me KG. KG, you're so lucky. Like, how do you get all these, you're so lucky you get all these opportunities. I'm like, lucky? I flew to Australia to get back on the field.
Yeah. Yeah.
I spent 3 years in Austin, Minnesota, world headquarters of Hormel, where they make all this spam.
Yeah.
I went back to college at 38 years old and lived in a dorm with my family of 5.
Yeah. Yeah.
We go where the opportunities are, and that's how we open doors. And it's not for everybody. The neighborhood you grew up in, maybe that's where you want to spend your whole life, and you figure out how to make that work. I've just always had this adventurous spirit. I just always have the feeling that there's something out there that I want to latch onto. People I want to meet, things I want to learn, things I want to do. And having had my bouts with cancer over the course of the years, it has really shown me that life is short, man. You only get one go around, and that's what I tell the kids about stealing bases, especially third base. Because sometimes they'll have the perfect read, the perfect jump, but they'll shut it down because they were afraid it's going to be an inside move or they're going to get thrown out. And I'm like, hey, man, this ain't a simulation. You only live once. You may never have another coach that gives you the green light to steal. So, man, go get it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny that when you were just talking about, going where the opportunities are and getting the opportunities that you got, it reminds me of a story, and this was not long ago, maybe a year or so ago. Another coach had said to me that he was looking for a coaching job, and he wasn't having much success, and he said, I don't mean this to be self-serving, but this is what he said to me, is he goes, sure, he goes, everybody wants, Jimmy, Phil, and Jerry to come and coach their team. He said, everybody knows who you are and this and that. I said, well, wait a minute. That goes back to what you were saying. I said, wait a minute. I said, I put in a lot of time and a lot of hard work to get the credentials that I have and the involvement that I have. I said, if you do that, you're going to get the opportunity. So you have to work at it just like anybody else.
Yeah, our coaching trajectories are like airplanes gradually ascending off runways, and you start on the ground.
Yes. I mean, my first coaching experience, and everybody who listens to this show has heard me say it, was back in 1983, I think it was. And I can tell you right now, it was one of the biggest disasters you would ever want to see in your life. It was horrible.
Yeah, I mean, my first coaching job, coaching American Legion ball, I was 22, still going through cancer treatments. These kids were 18 and 19 years old. I'm like 2 or 3 years older than them. What I can say is that what I knew then pales in comparison to what I know now. But I want what I know now to pale in comparison to what I know 5 years from now and 10 years from now. But the one thing that I had in place was the ability to motivate and get the ship going in the same direction and get us playing hard. I could do that right on day one, even though I didn't really know how to teach anything related to the game. So I sort of had a natural flair in that area. And I think that's why people looked at me and said, you should keep doing this.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's, I don't care what it is. I don't care if it's baseball. I don't care if it's, learning how to paint houses.
Yeah.
If you don't work hard at it, you're not going to be any good at it.
Yeah, you got to keep stacking days, and every day is better than the next, and every day, a little bit more than the day before. My dad and I used to golf at Albany Municipal Golf Course, the city course right on New Scotland Ave where I grew up. And there's this one hole where he would, tee his ball up, take his driver out, and he would hit it dead left into the woods almost every time. And then he'd drop a provisional ball right on the tee. He'd turn back and he'd look at me and he'd say, same guy, more experience, and he'd rip it right down the fairway.
I love that. Yeah.
I use that analogy so much because it's so true in life.
Sure it is. Yeah.
You learn by doing things, and sometimes they don't always go well, but the next time you encounter that situation, it's going to be better because you had that opportunity. Yeah,
and I love what you were saying about base running, because I always tell my players, if you get thrown out, you get thrown out. I'm not going to be mad at you. Just as long as you didn't do something really stupid, which we're hoping they won't do. And even if you did something stupid, I'm not going to get mad at you. We're going to talk about it, make sure it doesn't happen again. That's all.
Now, that was one of my greatest challenges with the Chicago Cubs, because I had been used to skippering my own ships. And honestly, I didn't care about success rate. I just wanted to get bags and let it rip.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, I am the base stealing coordinator for a major league organization that has mandated 83% success rate. And, we have an affiliate in Myrtle Beach and an affiliate in South Bend and Knoxville and Iowa. And I'm watching all these games at the same time, on like my computer screen if I'm not there in person. And I'm just holding my breath when these stolen base attempts would happen. I'm like, oh my God, 83%. And, I'm not there to help, make it go well. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was a really stressful deal.
Yeah. I mean, that's a lot of pressure right there.
Yeah.
Sure it is.
But, it was an honor. I mean, to get to, be at the highest level of baseball in one of the marquee organizations in all the sports and have that responsibility and working with the players that we got to work with. I got to be on the field with Pete Crow Armstrong and Moises Ballesteros and, Dansby Swanson and Nico Horner and all the guys, man. I learned so much. I gave as much back as I felt like I possibly could. And, my return to pro ball someday soon.
Yeah, I mean, that's an incredible accomplishment because, again, let's face it, most guys don't get that type of, we'll say, go back to the word opportunity, but you didn't get it because somebody liked the color of your shoes.
Yeah. And, one of the greatest things about that experience, Jimmy, was, as baseball people, we always watch games and we wonder, how is that taught at the highest level? Or how do they do that, like, in the big show? And I just got the answer to every question I'd ever had answered over the course of 3 years.
Yeah, that's great.
I asked a million questions and observed all the coordinators. Like I came into pro ball not knowing much about one knee down catching. So I'm like, all right, I'm going to follow our catching coordinators around and see what they're teaching and how they teach it and why they teach it and what it looks like.
Yeah. And I'm sorry.
Just as an example. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, again, that's something that I think that we all need. We need that because, again, I'll use me. Yeah. I don't like the one knee down. I don't like it. But that doesn't mean that I won't let a player do it. Okay. So then it's up to me to learn how to help that player do it to the best of his ability.
Yeah. I love one knee down catching when we're delay stealing against them.
And now you know why I don't like it.
Especially when they go from one knee down to kickstand and we're shuffling and we turn that shuffle into a steal break and they got to scramble to their feet.
Yeah. Now you know why I don't like it.
Yeah. When we delay, I tell the guys, hey guys, we don't want second base. We want third base. Yeah. Late throw, late middle infielders crashing the bag, balls in the outfield, we're high-fiving at third base. And I'm like, let's go.
Yeah. And again, it's another thing that I teach. I'll use as an example on a base hit. Okay. You're not happy with first base. You're going to base hit into the outfield. You're looking two the whole damn way. And when you see you don't have it, then you break it down and we get back to the base. But, man, you're looking to take that extra base all the time.
Yeah, one thing we have access to this summer, managing the Lowell Spinners in the Futures League, is we have technology at our home stadium, Lowell Park, called Aware. And Aware is 6 different cameras from all different angles with metrics attached to it at the output.
Wow.
And so, we have the opportunity to have a little video chalk talk about the previous night's game before we play the next game. And, we can bring up stuff like, kid hits a routine single and is Cadillacing around first base, right? We get to, and I'll have fun with it. I'll run it back and forward and back and forward. My grandmother can make a harder turn than that. Holy cow. We'll have fun with it. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
So, show don't tell is one of my favorite coaching expressions. You
exactly.
talk, blah, blah, blah. Right. But if you can show it on video or demonstrate it in a drill, that goes a long way.
Right. I always tell my players, you want to impress somebody, hit a double in the gap. That'll impress people. So
absolutely.
Okay, so we're getting to the end here. So if a player you've coached is listening to this, 20 years from now, what's one thing you hope they remember about Kevin Graber, not as a coach, as a person?
Well, this will happen because I will send a link to this podcast to everybody I know, Jimmy. I'll put it out on all my socials as well. But that's an easy one. I would love for them to say, man, it wasn't about, what he knew. It was about that he cared. Because by and large, I find in coaching, and it sounds cliche, but they don't care how much you know unless they know that you actually care.
Well, wait a minute. Yeah. Have you listened to any of my shows?
I have listened to some of your shows. I haven't heard this part in particular.
Okay, because that's the way I end every show. My
Oh, actually,
my last words are: people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care.
there we go. We're like my great minds think alike.
Yeah, yeah.
I once said that to a kid. We had a catcher named John Samorian, and Rory Zomack is on the mound, and I'm trying to get John to call a slider, right? And Rory throws a slider, strike three, end of the inning. They're coming off the field, and he goes, "Great call, KG," throwing that slider. And I was like, "Oh, thanks." He's like, "But I was going to call that anyway." And I go, "Well, you know what they say about great minds." And he looks at me and he's like, "Yeah." He's like, "I got nothing." So I had to explain to him what that means. Great minds think alike.
Exactly. So, Kevin, I can't thank you enough for coming on. Good luck to you in, your future endeavors. And again, I just appreciate you being here.
Jimmy, thank you so much. The fact that, you've invited me to have this conversation, that anybody might care what I have to say about anything, man, I'm always honored and flattered. And I thank you for the opportunity.
Well, I have a sneaky suspicion that a lot of people are going to appreciate what you've had to say because it's all really good stuff.
I appreciate it. Thank you, Jimmy.
All righty, Kev. Thanks, and enjoy the rest of the day.
All right. You got it, my friend.
I wanted to reach out to Coach Graber because I knew that he was someone that was very passionate about base running. And, we talk about it on the show all the time that base running is probably one of the most neglected areas of the game. A lot of people don't teach it. I've heard it from college coaches many, many times that base running is something that is lacking when high school players get to the college level. So I said, this will be great. We'll get into a lot of stuff about base running. Well, the windup was that we got into a lot more than just base running. I mean, look, Coach Graber's been around for a long time. You heard us talk about all the way from Little League all the way through to the professional ranks with the Chicago Cubs. I mean, that's a broad area of coaching. And, one of the things that hit home with me is that, once again, he talked about development. It never stops. Youth player, college athlete, even professional players who continue to grow are the ones that eventually succeed. They embrace learning every single day. We need to do that as coaches too. We talk about it all the time. The other thing too that, I think made an impact was that we talked about relationships. Okay, once again, there you go. Relationships do matter. Great coaches aren't remembered for the wins and losses. Yeah, some are, and I get it. Guys at the highest level win a lot of games, but they win a lot of games because they're coaching right. They're doing it right, so they're going to win. We talk about that all the time. But getting back to the relationship thing, great coaches are remembered for the impact they make on the lives of their players. It's that simple, okay? You want your players to remember you for the person that you are and the person that you made them. Not necessarily, how many games you won, how many tournaments you won. That's not what it's about. We also got into a little bit about fundamentals, okay? Throwing, catching, base running, communication, decision-making. They will always be the foundation of successful baseball. Character. We talked about character. Talent may get you noticed, yes, and, there's no doubt about it that recruiters are going to go and see guys that have talent, of course, right? But what separates because they're all talented, what separates the talented players from other talented players, right? We're looking for consistency, humility, accountability, work ethic. Those are the things that coaches are looking for, okay? We talk about, as coaches, coaching the person first. Great player development begins with understanding the individual. When players know you care about them beyond baseball, they're far more willing to be coached, to be open to the things that you're trying to teach them. So if I had to wrap this thing up, Kevin Graber has experienced baseball from just about every angle imaginable. as a player, a survivor, a teacher, a college coach, a professional coach, and now as the manager of the Lowell Spinners. Through every stop, the common thread has been his commitment to helping players become the best version of themselves. Yes, championships are memorable, but statistics fade, and the impact we have on people, that lasts forever. So, Coach Graber, I want to thank you for sharing your story, your experiences, and your passion for developing young people. I have no doubt our listeners will walk away with ideas they can apply, whether they're coaching a Little League team, a college program, or simply supporting their own son or daughter through the game. So, if you enjoyed today's show, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Visit the website at thectbshow.net. Listen to your favorite episodes and please leave us a review. You can also reach out to the show on social media, X, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and get this, the old man has finally got us on TikTok. Keeps me young. And if you have any questions or topics you'd like me to cover, please drop us an email at clearingthebases@gmail.com. Your feedback helps us bring you the best content and reach more people in the baseball community just like you. And also, let me know if you'd like to be a guest. Until then, coaches and players, keep practicing, stay positive, and remember, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. Thanks, everyone, and I'll see you on the next one.